Celaena Sardathian has traded her assassin's blades for despair, wasting away in Wendlyn instead of carrying out the king's command to kill Galen Ashriver. But when a mysterious warrior forces her on a path toward Queen Maeve, Celaena's exile begins to look less like punishment and more like destiny. Back in Rifthold, tension runs high. Dorian and Chaol's once unbreakable bond splinters under the weight of secrets. Enter Aedion Ashriver, whose swagger and sharp tongue turn every conversation into a battlefield, even as Dorian finds a quiet escape in the healer Sorsha. And far from them all, the Iron Teeth Witch, Manon Blackbeak, reminds us who the true predator is, proving in blood that even hunters can become prey. Hey there, we're BookTok for BookTok with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously.
We bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up book talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you'd give a classic in literature class, just with more humor and less homework.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. We also analyze the story through two different literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
I'm Jack. I studied creative writing for my bachelor's degree and comparative literature for my master's, and I'll be looking at the text through a feminist lens, which will take a heteronormative view on gender, roles, stereotypes, and how they shape the story. Just because I use it as a tool does not mean it represents the way I view gender. It does not. It's just how I'm using the lens for analysis.
And I'm Amy, with a degree in creative writing and a master's in education. I'll be using the Marxist lens to uncover the power dynamics at play, which are sometimes obvious and sometimes hidden in metaphors, like with food and animal traits.
Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way.
This is our first episode discussing Sarah J. Maas's third novel in the Throne of Glass series, Heir of Fire. In this episode, we'll cover chapters 1 through 7.
For a complete list of episodes and chapter breakdowns, please be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle BookTok for BookTok. Now, before we dive in, let's talk about S.P.I.L.T. Spoilers, perspective, interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers. This episode covers Heir of Fire with full context from the first 3 books, that being Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, and Heir of Fire. If you haven't read those, this is your only spoiler warning. Anything beyond Heir of Fire and other SJM works will be saved for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode that airs this Thursday.
Perspective and interpretation. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We don't speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We love hearing them, so share anyway.
Language. We use explicit language and we can't help ourselves, so keep your headphones in and the kiddos away.
Themes. We'll discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website. And if you want exclusive content and live streams, you can find us over at patreon.com/BookTok for BookTok.
Can't get enough of analysis? Make sure to check out the Subtext Society Journal, where we write think pieces discussing the romance and romantasy genre as a whole, the ongoing conversations in the bookish community, and insights on the publishing world. You can read our latest articles for free with no subscription required, but to receive the news articles in the future, make sure to subscribe.
Want to be published? Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com to submit your article for a chance to be a paid contributor.
The question we ask ourselves for this book, we're going to come back to this in the final episode, do we believe Celaena's character arc as she metamorphosizes into Aelin Galathynius?
We ask ourselves a question each week, and for this week, we're starting with, do we believe the opening of Heir of Fire is adequately set up by the preceding events in Crown of Midnight, as well as the status of everyone and everyone's relationship?
Themes we see in this section include depression, avoidance, and broken bonds.
We start out with part 1, titled Heir of Ash, which honestly, very bleak, is pretty succinct at capturing where Aelin's mind, or Celaena's mind, is at, which is chapter 1. We start in a hugely different climate than the first two books in the Throne of Glass series. Unlike the snow or the cold or the, just bleak kind of seasons, we start out with this first sentence, quote, "Gods, it was boiling in this useless excuse for a kingdom." Now, for a first time reader, this is likely not how we expect the novel to start out, given the events of Crown of Midnight. She's off on this big assassination mission. Everything was very dramatic with the reveal of her identity. And oh my God, it's hot. At the same time, it's also classically Celaena, because despite the Aelin reveal of her identity, Celaena still views herself as Celaena. I think it's also a nice nod to her fire magic, one that we know Celaena hasn't come to terms with, and that's reflected in her disdain and resentment of the weather.
I mean, I love this opening sentence too, but I actually found it to be kind of weird and really different because if you think about the first two books, it's very distant third. And the fact that the very first sentence is, "Gods, it was boiling in this useless excuse for a kingdom." Even in general, in SJM books so far with Crown of Midnight, Throne of Glass, it's rarely that narrow of a
Hmm.
third person. And the fact that we're getting that at the start of this book is very interesting. It's almost like Celaena doesn't even have enough energy to block out the reader.
That's a great point, because those first books definitely don't start with us hearing the thoughts in Celaena's
Mhm.
head. We start out really quickly with Celaena comparing herself to food. And, guys, it's been how many seasons now? This is maybe I'm trying to do math and I'm not doing it very quickly, ninth SJM book that we've covered. So know by this point that I'm talking about food is power, or in this case, weakness. Celaena is, quote, "slowly baking in the sun like the loaves of flatbread the city's poorest citizens left on their windowsills because they couldn't afford brick ovens." So, Celaena comparing herself to food, by the way, the food of the poorest citizens, sets her up to be easy pickings. She is the prey to someone else's predator. This is not the assassin we're familiar with. Something's off. This is setting the tone for where Celaena is at. This is also confirmed by the fact that, quote, "she'd resorted to swiping tegya and wine off vendors' carts since her money ran out. The wine was a taste she'd initially spat out, but now very much enjoyed, especially since the day when she decided that she didn't particularly care about anything at all." AKA, Selena's drunk and not in control. She has no plan, she has no purpose, and she has nowhere to go.
It's funny because in the Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode, we're going to talk about what we asked our listeners, which is, how do we feel about her being drunk and everything? And a little glimpse. A lot of people were defending her, which I get. But I would like to emphasize a couple things here. One, she is abusing alcohol as a coping mechanism, and she's 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with the legal age to drink. What I think it has to do is that it's SJM aging her up. If we were sit here and look at it as a true YA novel and say, oh, there's a 19-year-old child is abusing alcohol to get away from their problems, that would be a different kind of novel and we'd all be much more concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But we know Aelin is about to fall for this hundreds and thousands of years old fae. Whether SJM knows what she's doing, she's aging her up with this behavior.
It's a great point.
I actually find it problematic. I'm not a huge fan of that, to be honest.
No. I'm not a fan of it.
No,
I'm
I
glad
know.
you pointed it out, though.
As I was writing it, I was like, ooh, I hate this. I
Yeah.
actually really don't like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because A, alcohol abuse just isn't good. B, I feel like it normalizes it, especially at a young age.
Yeah, it normalizes it. What I don't like is aging up a young character for the sake of making it okay for her to pair with a much older man.
Yep.
That is predatory shit. They're so much wiser than you're so much wiser for your age.
Oh, you're an old soul.
You're an old soul. You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
just would like to normalize shaming authors doing that a little bit, At least let their frontal lobe develop.
Yeah.
It's fine. But yeah, so it was just an act like that where I'm like, oh, You're doing this to offset the Rowan shit later. Again, I don't think she actively is thinking that, but subconsciously, I think that's what the author in her is doing.
Makes sense.
To continue with this narrowed third person, we're seeing a lot more sass from Celaena, quote, just as she'd been ordered by his grand imperial majesty and master of the earth, the king of Aderlin. I'm pretty sure that master of the earth is not one of his titles. So you have a lot, like, she's given up. She's exaggerating. She is sassy. I want to take a moment to appreciate, though, some of the imagery that SJM uses to really show Celaena's mental state. Quote, she'd realized that she'd rather sprawl in the shadows, shadows that had long since been burned away by the relentless Wendlyn sun. This land is making her face her own issues. The shadows that had long since been burned away. So her own issues, her own being able to hide from her identity is being burned away. She is now forced to deal with her identity. Subtle imagery, but we love it. It's beautiful.
Great job.
Thank you. Or good job, SJM, whichever one. If you
I was saying you did a good job.
Oh my God. Thank you. If you thought we were going to be done shitting on Nehemia just because she's dead,
think again.
Think again, bitch, because we are back. Quote, you are nothing but a coward. Nehemia had said that to her. Every slice of that wedding stone had echoed it. Coward, coward, coward. The word had trailed her each league across the ocean. Nehemia calling her a coward, and then the way that things were left with Kale, and then the fact that she has to deal with her true identity. There's a lot of shit happening. Like, I get that it's piling up, but we're going to hyperfixate on Nehemia's words because it's almost easier to face being told that she's a coward than face her true identity.
That's a great point. And it's definitely a signal of Celaena succumbing to her current state of depression, because that's what this is. You know, even though as she recounts her journey across the sea, it comes across that she was kind of hell-bent getting to the capital so that she can, figure out how to keep her vow to free Eelway and how to find and destroy word keys. She was pretty determined, but that changes at some point. So let's dig down and find that. Quote, hurrying to the capital had also provided some activity after weeks at sea where she hadn't really felt like doing anything other than lying on the narrow bed in her cramped cabin or sharpening her weapons with a near religious zeal. Hyperfixation, as Jack called out, that's definitely a symptom of depression, as is the lethargy. Just laying on the narrow bed, doing nothing. I identify with that. I mean, not a narrow bed, but just lying in bed.
Mm-hmm.
And, she maybe has tried to jumpstart her motivation by hurrying to the capital, yet we're finding her laying on the roof, drunk, drinking, eating flatbread. So she hasn't really rallied here. Celaena does also admit, quote, she'd gladly destroy herself to carry it out, it being destroy the word keys. Just her, just him being the king of Aderlin. Just as it should be. No loss of life beyond their own, no soul stained but hers. It would take a monster to destroy a monster. So this is a little glimpse into how Celaena views herself. Not only is she fixating on Nehemia calling her a coward, she's also convinced herself she is a monster. And that is how she is going to treat herself and expect others to treat her throughout the course of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
Just a quick side note, during this recounting of her journey, Celaena convinces herself that she needs to seek out Queen Maeve to get answers. And there's always meaning in names when SJM is involved. And Maeve has Irish origin, meaning she who intoxicates or she who rules. And I feel like
she who rules. I'm gonna throw that out there.
I'm gonna go with she who rules.
Yeah. A little bit more imagery that SJM is doing, and dare I say a callback. Quote, there was nothing left in her. Not really. Only ash and an abyss and the unbreakable vows she'd carved into her flesh to the friend who had seen her for what she truly was. This might be me reaching, but when I hear abyss, it made me immediately think of the chasm that Celaena dreamt of in the previous book. And that chasm was growing larger and larger throughout that second book. And there was a stag across the way, and she was getting farther and farther from the stag. So just the fact that she's describing this as only ash in an abyss just reminds me a little bit of that chasm.
Good callback.
Thank you. Celaena sees a group of refugee women who are on a boat on the way to Wendlyn and is worried for them. Quote, "Yet Wendlyn's officials could later bring them to a quiet part of the city and do whatever they wanted, sell them, hurt them. They were refugees, unwanted, without any rights, without any voice." Freakishly accurate for today, all right? Because
Mm-hmm.
books are political. If this is somehow your first episode with us, guess where we land? Anyway, books are fucking political. Look at this. But what we also see are hints of Celaena being protective of women. And we've had, I would say, one moment of that before. And that's when she had a flashback to Endovier, how there was women were being assaulted there and she killed some of the guards. But we really haven't had that from her since, because we've only seen Celaena around Caltaine and Nehemia. And I just find it to be refreshing to see her in a world that's not confined, where women are being pitted against each other, and that she actually has this protective nature come out.
I am glad you brought that up, because this is an example of a time where Jack and I can read the same thing and think different things. Not that I'm countering what Jack is saying. I think this is a great example of Celaena being an unreliable narrator when she describes these refugee women. I'm going to read a little bit more of the section that Jack touched on. Quote, "Many of the women were scarred inside and out, their eyes gleaming with echoes of whatever horrors had befallen them in Otterlyn. So even after she'd vanished from the ship during the chaos of docking, she'd lingered on a nearby rooftop while the women were escorted into a building to find homes and employment. But she hadn't lingered merely from paranoia. No, Nehemia would have remained to ensure they were safe." In this moment, Celaena is giving Nehemia way too much power. To Jack's point, Celaena has forgotten she killed men in Endovier because they raped and murdered a woman who helped Celaena.
Mm-hmm.
She therefore went and killed 24 men. Like, Celaena, despite what we've seen of her in Rifthold with Nehemia and Caltaine, she has a history of being a protector of women.
Yeah.
And in this moment, she's convinced herself she's only there because Nehemia would have wanted her there, not because Celaena inherently cares.
Yep.
So, that being said, as readers, we need to take Celaena's point of view with a grain of salt at times.
That's funny. I agree. I don't think this is us having separate point of views. I
No,
think
no,
we're
no.
just diving into the psyche. Only because people will have, like, there are sometimes there are scenes where I look at it through a feminist, you look through it through a Marxist, and it's truly separate, and those are really fun.
Yeah.
Just do it, guys.
All I'm saying is that we can read the same thing and
Yeah.
have similar thoughts, but think of them in different ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just was thinking it's funny that SJM was like, "Ooh, I got rid of 2 women here. Time to replace them with 2 more." Or shouldn't be done.
Yeah. Later, as Celaena tries to appreciate the sounds of the city around her, she thinks, quote, "Nehemia would have loved this place. That fast the world slipped, swallowed up by the abyss that now lived within her. Nehemia would never see Wendlyn." A dead weight pressed on Celaena's chest. What I'm taking from this is that Nehemia anchors Celaena in her grief and despair. She's dead weight.
Yeah. It's interesting, the idea of, like, Nehemia will never see Wendlyn. It's not like Nehemia had intense expressed interest of, like, God, all I ever want to do in my life is see Wendlyn.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think that it was an interesting thing for her to point, like, to say, like, she'll never see Wendlyn because Wendlyn represents her. Aelin.
Good
Because that's where her
point.
mother's from. So, because at first I was, like, making fun of Celaena in my head, where I was like, oh, she'll never see the place that she never said that she wanted to go to. But then I was like, oh, wait, Wendlyn means a lot more.
No, that's a great point. I didn't even think of it that way. In my mind, Celaena's just adding emotional weight to something that doesn't need emotional weight.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure she's,
But
like, looking at the bread. She's like, "She'd love this bread." It's horrible because 'cause we're making fun of someone who lost someone, and, like, that
yeah,
is absolutely horrible.
but
Anyway,
we have to be critical of Celaena.
we have to be, and we can only do that by being assholes. It's our brand. Celaena, if you couldn't tell, is in a funk. Quote, "She found it suddenly very difficult to bring herself to care about anything at all. Whatever determination, whatever rage, whatever anything she felt upon leaving Aderlin had ebbed away, devoured by the nothingness that now gnawed at her." Another quote. I'm going to just list a couple of quotes here. "As the days wore on, she found it suddenly very difficult to bring herself to care about anything at all." And then finally, "Now wasn't the time to think about Kale or the truth or any of the things that had left her soul so limp and weary." We are just getting hammered with the, hey guys, she's depressed. And how do we feel about the way that the depression is being depicted? I feel like the depression is earned. Like everything that she's listing is like, yeah, that's earned. Is it a little bit too quick? I actually find the pacing of her depression to be kind of weird for me. Cuz we have this right now, it's almost whiplash, right? Because we as readers are kind of saying, wait a minute, I have never seen this Celaena before. I thought we left the last book as, I'll do it, Nehemia. I'm going to try.
Gung ho.
Gun ho. And then now we're here and we instantly landed in full on depression. And it's a little whiplashy. But for pacing reasons, I get why this needs to happen because we need to like kind of hurry up. We can't see her get depressed, right? We're kind of like, hey, we need this book to start. We need it going. SJM's like, I need to catch you up on these 2 weeks. She feels like shit. Let's go. But for pacing reasons, it's also it's heavy. It's a bit weird, and I'll get into it more when Rowan finds Celaena and he summons her, like when from Maeve summoning her. I'll get into it more then, but, like, again, I just wanna, like, point out how intense SJM is going here on the depression, but again, it makes sense, like, there's a lot for her to feel ashamed about, and she's in her mommy's land, her motherland, her mommy land. To really double down on her guilt spiral, Celaena decides to think about Archer. Quote, "She could still feel Archer's blood soaking her skin into her hair. Even with the constant noise and rhythm of Varys, she could still hear Archer's groan as she gutted him in that tunnel beneath the castle. And even with the wine and heat, she could still see Kale, horror contorting his face at what he'd learned about her Fae heritage and the monstrous power that could easily destroy her, about how hollow and dark she was inside." It's a lot of shit happening, right? The combination of killing Archer with the truth about her is very interesting. Like she's combining the two of these things a lot, mainly because Archer kind of hinted to him knowing about her truth, which I
Yeah.
think like is part of the reason why he signed his death sentence, where she might have let him go, but then it's like, ooh, actually, I kind of need to take you out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not so much about like, the fact that he was like threatening to kill. He was like, guess what? I helped kill Nehemia. I was like, no, you're a threat to me. But there is a link between his death and Kale finding out her true identity, and the fact that, like obviously there's a link. This all happened at the same time. It's just the fact that she views that fayness inside of her as being hollow and dark and that monstrous side and like thing inside her. It doesn't help when she shows it and Kale has that reaction. And it doesn't help when in a couple chapters, this is going to be mirrored almost identically to Kale's dream that he wakes up from.
Yeah. No wonder why Celaena thinks of herself as a monster.
Yeah. Here is the reason why Celaena starts to really spiral when she sees her cousin. Quote, "It hadn't been the sight of him with his olive skin and dark hair that had stopped her dead. No, it had been the way the people cheered for him, their prince, adored him, with his dashing smile, his light armor gleaming in the endless sun. The prince, her target, was a God's damn blockade runner against Aderlin, and his people loved him for it." I find it interesting that she doesn't see herself in him, even though they have the
Mm.
same eyes. I deleted that part because it was such a long quote, but they have the same eyes, and she still doesn't see herself in him at all. And the fact that he is willing to stand up for what's right, he's willing to go against Aderlin and again, he's able to be publicly adored. She cannot be publicly adored. Everything she does is very private and quiet and not necessarily adore worthy.
I was going to say shameful.
Yeah. I don't blame her, but yeah, I can understand why assassin might be considered shameful.
Mm-hmm. Like the quote Jack just read and the quote I'm about to read, it's hard to deny that Galen seems like a romantic fairy tale hero. When I say, quote, when Galen Ashriver rode off into the sunset, off to war and glory and to fight for good and freedom, she lingered on that roof until he was a speck in the distance. Yeah, he sounds like a fucking knight in shining armor. Then she had walked into the nearest taberna and gotten into the bloodiest, most brutal brawl she'd ever provoked. Galen is the gallant knight.
I was going to say, it's one letter away from gallant.
Yes, technically two.
Oh,
It's missing an L and a T, but
Gallant.
it's as close as you can get to gallant.
Yeah.
It's also Greek for calm or tranquil, Hebrew for calm or bright, Irish for little hero, apparently Spanish for handsome. I don't know.
I don't think
That's
not one I use.
the internet is wrong, folks.
I mean, it could be right. My family's
Galan,
Spanish is not great. Huh?
Galan. It's got like a
I guess.
handsome, attractive,
Guapo.
elegant man, a heartthrob.
Qué rico. All right, continue. Also,
Regardless,
he said tranquil in a really cool way.
Tranquil.
He said tranquil or something like that. You gave it flair.
Oh, tranquil.
Yeah,
Like tranquility.
yeah, it was nice. I was like, oh,
Felt calm for a moment.
I know.
Either way, this is a harsh reminder to Aileen or Celaena what she is not. So, what does she do? She takes out her anger by getting into fight and gets beaten up. Quote, and then she had decided as her nose bled down the front of her shirt and she spat blood onto the cobblestones that she wasn't going to do anything. There was no point to her plans. Nehemia and Galen would have led the world to freedom. So, comparison, the Thief of Joy is here stealing Aylin's, Celaena's. I'm going to really fuck that one up constantly this season. Right now, she's Celaena. She has no joy because she keeps thinking about the people who are better than her. And so when she's going to meet others, aka individuals like Rowan, others at the fortress, she's going to be a bitch and antagonize them because she doesn't think she should be alive.
Yeah.
Let's just not forget that.
Let's not forget it. That's why it hurts to see him. He's everything she's not. He's willing to fight. What I want to ask here is if Celaena has fundamentally changed. And this is why I ask, because of this quote. Celaena vowed her stupid, pitiful vow was worth as much as mud when there were beloved heirs like Galen who could do so much more. She'd been a fool to make that vow. Have we ever seen her really give up on a vow like that before? I mean, I've never seen her go. I mean, she's in a depression and she's spiraling, but think of it this way. One of the things that like Kale and her bonded on was essentially this like sense of honor and vowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we talked about it being a huge part of Kale's identity, but it is a big part of Celaena's identity too. And this is her giving up on that very quickly, very early.
And, you know, regardless of what story you're in, a blood vow, which is what Celaena did, is like the highest form of a vow that you could possibly have. So for Celaena to give up on a blood vow this early tells you how far she's fallen. Like it's pretty bad for her to have fallen that fast. Also, she compares herself to being worth as much as blood, which is again an indication of how low she is, how worthless she feels. And we have to point it out because she's got to recover from all of this.
Yeah. Also, the fact that she's kind of comparing her own blood as mud.
It's a good point.
Like, this is a blood vow and it's worth as much as mud. SJM is really catching us up on where Celaena is. Like, she's like, hey, again, we'll talk about it more at the end, but I do find it to be kind of hard where SJM's like, my characters start here and I'm going to front load the shit out of this and I need you guys to get on board.
Yeah.
Quote, at Nehemia's half-frozen grave over a month ago, and everything and everyone else she'd failed. Just like her amethyst ring, which she'd gambled away every night and won back before sunrise. It's very reckless of her jewelry. And it's interesting because that was a moment, her relationship with Kale was an interesting one because there were these moments of her embracing that femininity. We know there's that intense femininity within Celaena. She loves jewelry. She loves clothing. Again, heterotypical normatives here that we're talking. But this ring that Kale gave her, I actually, if you remember, compared it to a purity ring back in the day. And she slept with Kale. And so there's this idea of her giving away her purity and claiming it every single time, every night, and not being able to let him go.
I think it's interesting that not only is she trying to let it go, but can't let it go, she's willing to use violence to take the ring back instead of like gambling it back or like being a card shark or whatever and fooling people into thinking she's bad at cards. Like, she's so desperate to get it back, she's willing to pull her dagger on people and demand it back,
Yeah.
which I think for me is a level of intensity and maybe a level of denial about that relationship being over.
Yeah.
Because he did say, I love you. And she is the one who didn't return that when she left. However, she's still struggling with those feelings.
She didn't return it verbally, but she made it very clear to the reader that she did love him and does love him. And love like that doesn't disappear in 2 weeks.
Right. Take a sip.
Take a sip. Celaena starts walking, and a vagrant woman mistakes Celaena as another vagrant. If anything, a more vagrant vagrant. Quote, the tang and reek of the woman hit Celaena before she saw her. Then wide yellow eyes were in her face, and a pair of withered, cracked lips parted to hiss, Slattern, don't let me catch you in front of my door again. Slattern? She really dug in the vocabulary keep there.
Maybe, that's a common word in Wendlyn. You don't know.
How the fuck did she even look it up? Like,
I don't know.
it's a very particular description slur. I don't even know whether it's a slur, but it's a very specific description of a woman who is untidy
and slovenly.
Yeah, like what choice was that? Honestly, it's an impressive use of vocabulary. So I just wanted to,
I would love to know if SJM already knew that word or if she looked it up in a thesaurus.
Or did she control synonym for the Word document? But it is interesting, though, that this is actually the first moment that Celaena is going to have a certain level of shame is when she's like, oh my God, you're confusing me as one of you, or I'm just as bad as her. Like that, there's like a certain level of vanity that comes out there. But, it's the fact that herself, the woman, the slattern, is insulted.
That's right. And she ends the chapter right before Rowan chuckles, thinking, wow, an all-time low, even for her. Perhaps it'd be funny one day if she bothered to remember it. She couldn't recall the last time she'd laughed. And, there's just this very intense degree of patheticness about Celaena, and she's kind of embracing it right now.
Here's the thing. One, we've all been there where we embrace a certain level of pathetic. There comes a point in every depressive spiral where you're like, I'm just going to lean into this cliche and it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. I don't think that's what she's doing, but it is funny. But what's also funny is that I can tell you the exact last moment she laughed, and that's when she was with Dorian. Do you want to know why I know that? It's only been 2 fucking weeks.
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. But, like, that kind of sentiment of, I don't know when the last time I laughed. Actually, it's only been, like, less than a month. All right.
Some of us have had spirals that last years.
No, exactly. Exactly. What I'm saying is that it's certain language like that makes it seem like it's been happening a lot longer. It's the language that SJM is using to drive the point home that look at her. She's so depressed. And it's been that way for well, she was depressed when she left.
Yeah.
I get that. But
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And to what extent is SJM laying it on thick because Celaena is being self-indulgent in her self-pity, is being melodramatic in her spiral? And I don't know the answer to that. Whether or not she intended it, it wouldn't be surprising to me if the reader's like, oh my God, Celaena, control yourself, please. It's not that bad. Easy for us to say our best friend didn't die and our parents haven't died, etc. But
Choi.
Troy. However, it does make sense for why other people around Celaena are going to be fucking annoyed with her attitude.
I mean, I'm answering the question so early already, but I'll go into it more at the end. It is hard because it feels like SJM needs this dynamic and she needs to
Mm-hmm.
get to this dynamic faster.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah. I have a lot of points that I'm going to make when it comes to Rowan. So get ready because we are now entering chapter 2. Enter Rowan and all of the women swoon. And he is such a divisive fucking character.
Yeah, I've never found him swoon worthy.
Most forgettable character. He's like a graham cracker where, yeah, I like graham crackers, I guess, but like in the sense that it's there, preferably with chocolate and other stuff and like cake on top of it. But yeah, all right, whatever.
I'd
Not
rather have
horrible.
the cinnamon sugar graham cracker.
Exactly. Now, what I do find it interesting is that he is a divisive character. A lot more people love him. And I am about to build a case that all you guys are going to be fucking pissed at me with, but like, oh well. I do want to remind you, though, that you can't have a main character, without a character arc and growth. And you can't have growth if you don't start somewhere from the bottom. Growing means going up. You got to start somewhere. So, boy, am I going to start him low. So, quote, it would have been a mistake to call him young. All right. I'm just going to let that sink in there. All right. Now I'm going to come back to this. It would have been a mistake to call him young, just as it would have been a mistake to call him anything but a warrior. Even without the sword strapped across his back and the vicious knives at his side, he moved with lethal grace and surety, scanning the alley as if he were walking into a killing field. Oh my God, he is fucking old. He's old and he's powerful. And I don't care like that people are pointing out that Celaena is a warrior. She's just as tough. No, she's 19 years old. 19. And because he's hot, we're going to forgive him. What if I were to be like, he's 48? How do you feel about it now? How do you feel about it now?
He's a 48 human
He's
instead of a...
Yeah, let's pretend he's 48 years old human. Because honestly, that's more generous than the hundreds of year difference.
Yeah.
If,
Daddy.
if you had a 48-year-old man who was like a professional fighter, how about this?
Silver Fox.
No, I was thinking like Mike Tyson, like someone who, like a professional athlete, but pretend like they're still at their peak type thing. Comes in and this 19-year-old is like, I'm training too. And then they go and punch her. All right.
We're not there yet. That's not this episode.
Nope. But I'm buttering them up.
So for as much as Celaena and Rowan are going to be two characters who are constantly at each other's throats, at least in the first half of this book, it's very hard to argue against the fact that Celaena is into Rowan from her descriptions, because Celaena and or SJM go a little overboard in the description area. Quote, tall, broad-shouldered, every inch of him seemingly corded with muscle, he was a male blooded with power. Starting at his temple, the tattoo flowed over his jaw and down his neck where it disappeared beneath the pale surcoat and cloak he wore. She had a feeling the markings continued down the rest of him, too.
All the way to his penis.
I know. She's definitely thinking about what's underneath those clothes.
No, it's like, you know what? Maybe depression can be cured with dick.
Despite what I'm assuming is attraction, Celaena does see Rowan for the predator that he is. Quote, he moved with lethal grace and surety, and later, quote, he prowled along, not deigning to look at any of the gawkers. I mean, he sounds like a leopard, but A beautiful leopard with tattoos down to his penis.
A beautiful leopard with tattoos down his penis. Should be a writer. That was poetic, Amy. That was. He prowled like a beautiful leopard that tattoos down to his penis.
Did you want to say something before
No,
I
I just can't go
continue?
to the zoo now.
That's fair. I went to, this is such a random side note, went to the Natural History Museum here in LA. They have a cat exhibit. So, every type of cat, lots of skeletons, lots of taxidermy, et cetera, et cetera. Every taxidermy that could have balls had balls. And I'm like, you didn't neuter them? Why did you have to make sure they were there?
To save that? Did we have to save that part too? Did we,
For posterity's sake.
I'm not morally against balls.
Okay. But
it could be worse.
Yeah, I mean,
nature gives a bad rep to balls.
Okay.
I'm going to stop talking.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So there's a moment when Celaena goes to touch the eye of Lena at her neck for protection, which is when Celaena remembers she gave the necklace away to Cale. Quote, he'd probably thrown it away as soon as he figured out the truth. Then he could go back to the haven of being her enemy. Maybe he'd tell Dorian too, and the pair of them would both be safe. She assumes that those two guys are still best buds and have forgotten her, which is great setup and irony for the next chapter.
It's like she wasn't even paying attention to them in the last book.
She really wasn't.
Yeah. We have two sides to Celaena. Quote, she summoned her energy as best as she could and sauntered over to him, trying to remember what she might have done months ago before the world had gone to hell. So this is Celaena, who we are very used to. We saw her in the first book, second book do this, where it was just a lot of false bravado, a lot of confidence. However, we then get this, quote, there'd be no fooling him with bravado, not in 1,000 years. He'd probably lived that long already. Perhaps there'd be no beating him either. She was Celaena Sardathian, but he was a Fae warrior and had likely been one for a great while. It's weird because she starts off with, I'm going to be confident, and the next paragraph is like, well, this isn't going to be rushed. And again, well, this isn't going to work. And again, I feel like this is rushed.
Yep.
She goes so quickly from bravado to, no, it's not going to work. But he doesn't even have a chance to say anything. She's like, hey, and then immediately gives up of like, well, he's old. He'll see right through me. So yeah, just a bit more.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give SJM grace here. Is this how Celaena operates when she's depressed and or drunk? Like, I know when it's my time of the month, as soon as those hormones hit, all the motivation I had to do something yesterday, gone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take naps for days.
And boy, are you.
Boy, do I. Like a 12-hour nap.
Yeah.
No big deal. So I don't know. Maybe this is reflective of SJM's experience with her mental health. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to excuse the way this is written because I agree with you. I don't think it's working. I think it's too rushed. But
there's circumstances that we're not used to, and we need to figure out if that plays an element.
Yes, exactly.
I hear you. I mean, you can keep bringing that up because I'm at the it's rushed part, but two things could be true, right?
Yeah.
Some more good symbolism here from SJM. So at this point, Rowan was like, hey, you need to come with me. And she's like, all right, I'm not even going to resist this. Like she immediately goes into like, okay, no resistance.
No stranger danger at all.
He's a leopard with a tattoo to his dick. She's not going to say no to that. All right.
You should always trust that.
Always trust a tattooed dick leopard. What?
We're so dumb.
What? Okay, so here's some symbolism. Quote, he mounted the larger of the mares, leaving her to the piebald beast that looked more interested in seeking out a quick meal than trekking across the land. That made two of them. We already see her relating to this horse, so I think it's worth looking into the fact that the horse is piebald, which is saying that there's dark spots on the horse, which you could say there's dark spots on her soul. She's already kind of made allusions to her just being like dark soul and worthless already. So, just wanted to point that out.
No, I think it's a great point. So as Celaena jumps onto her horse, quote, she stuffed her satchel into a saddlebag, angling her hands so that her sleeves hid the narrow bands of scars on her wrists, reminders of where the manacles had been, where she had been. It was none of his business, none of Maeve's business either. The less they knew about her, the less they could use against her. I might be wrong, and I am often wrong, even though I don't like to admit it. But this might be the first time ever, or at least that I remember, Celaena being cognizant of the scars on her wrist from the manacles of Endovier and then being self-conscious of them. I don't remember her being self-conscious of her scars at any point in time.
I know she hid them a little bit more. I mean, there's more self-consciousness here. I know she just kind of like would have her sleeves brought down, but this is much more self-conscious, I'd say.
Yeah, fair. And so why is she self-conscious? Is it because it demonstrates weakness that this part Fae princess was so weak to have been enslaved by mere humans? And it's also a visual reminder of why Celaena might think poorly of herself or be down on herself, because among the other royals that she knows of, she's probably the only one to be treated like a prisoner. Not even Nehemia was treated like a prisoner. And that's a weakness or vulnerability she doesn't necessarily want to expose.
Yeah. At this point, after she's left with the stranger, we get a name. She doesn't even question it. And Rowan introduces himself and he's like, Rowan. I like to imagine that's how he sounds. Rowan. In just some quick summary, you could be like, what does Rowan represent? Well, in Norse mythology, Rowan was a tree called Thor's salvation because it saved the god from drowning. In Greek mythology, the Rowan tree sprang up from the fallen blood and feathers of an eagle that fought demons to recover a chalice belonging to the goddess of youth, Hebe. And then there's more. I think there's even another Celtic meaning and there's a lot of things. All right. Take your pick. There's a lot of meanings of what the Rowan tree could be.
Represent,
yeah.
As he tells her his name, Celaena has another moment of finding Rowan attractive. Quote, his accent was subtle, lovely, if she was feeling generous enough to admit it, a soft, rolling purr. The leopard keeps coming back. Sounds like a pigeon.
I can't roll my R's, and I'm very self-conscious of it.
I'm sorry.
Meow. Meow. Check out my spotted dick.
I should never have said that. I think, again, Celaena is attracted to Rowan already, but she doesn't want to admit that attraction or the features of him that she finds good. Now, the question, though, for me is it because she doesn't like Rowan, or is it because she's still holding on to Kale? Is the only reason she not more interested in Rowan in this moment because she's depressed and misses Kale and still is in love with him? Or is it because Rowan's given off bad vibes?
Or because he's old.
That's also an option.
Like the
is
first
also
man
an option.
she liked, boy, not man. Sam was a boy. The fan art is beautiful. It's dumb because they're aging him up by like a decade. He's a boy. Balls barely dropped. And then you have Kale, who is like 22 years old. Again, barely a decade of dropped balls. And, he's still figuring out. And now you got a man. Allow me to build my case against Rowan. Or about Rowan. Not against, not me. Quote, well, Rowan, he didn't like her tone one bit. His eyes narrowed slightly in warning. But she went on, "Dare I ask where we're going?" She had to be drunk, still drunk, or descending into a new level of apathy. She's just talking to him in a sassy way. Like, that's literally nothing. Rowan is resenting Celaena for expressing herself, even if it's in a unhealthy way, but I feel like he would resent her either way. But it's one of those things of like, you're throwing yourself a pity party, and I didn't even do that when my mate died.
Nice.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You liked my accent?
Yeah.
This is where I feel like Celena's journey is a bit rushed. That's funny. That's my note, but I've been complaining about it being rushed this whole time. We then get a drunk, depressed Celaena, and then the moment that Rowan was like, hey, let's go travel. And then immediately, now her tune is, quote, as long as she got to see Maeve and ask her questions, she didn't particularly care how she got to Doranel or whom she traveled with. She's back on board with this mission. You mean, like,
Yeah.
okay. We did a lot of building up to then just switch it around. But,
Yep.
you know. All right, listeners, allow me to build my case. Thank you very much. Again, it doesn't stop. I'm just warning you now. Quote, if he was truly as old as she suspected, she was likely little more than a speck of dust to him, a fizzle of life in the long burning fire of his immortality. He could probably kill her without a second thought, and then move on to his next task, utterly untroubled by ending her existence. What we are seeing here is a power difference, a very clear power difference. Celaena's 19. She's had, what, 10 years of experience? One of those years she was in Dovier. So 11, 10 years of experience. And we are going to say that she is equivalent and equal to this man, she is little more than a speck of dust to him. That's what you're going to say, is that she's equal? She's not. All right. SJM has made it very clear here that Celaena is not equal, that Rowan is far more powerful and far older than her and far more experienced. So please, no more saying that she's just as much of a fighter and a warrior as him. No.
Let's talk about that visual of Celaena thinking of herself as a fizzle of life to his immortal fire. We saw Celaena powerful with her fire magic. You know, I think the image is meant to be reminiscent of her fire magic. The fizzle is like maybe some oil in a pan that is being heated by that fire. Whereas Rowan is full immortal fire compared to the sizzling water on the concrete. It's God tier powerful by comparison.
Yeah. And I think people, now I'm going to say this without spoiling future books, but let's just say that Celaena becomes very powerful. Let's just say that. When she taps into herself, she's powerful. I think people look to that Celaena, to Aelin, and they think about Aelin and they go, well, she's powerful too. Not right now.
Yeah, right now she's Celaena. She's a human
who has no experience and no power.
Yeah. I also want to call attention to the fact that, to Jack's points from earlier, there's a lot of telling instead of showing in these first couple chapters as SJM's trying to get us caught up with Celaena. Celaena keeps observing that Rowan is a warrior and keeps calling him a warrior, but I think that's based on a lot of assumptions. She assumes there's a lot of hidden weapons under his clothes. Quote, he pulled his pale hood over his silver hair and moved ahead, though it was still easy enough to mark him as different, as a warrior and law unto himself. What does that look like?
It's like when I walk through a bar.
You are a law unto yourself. You are a law of physics. Your boobs are their own law of physics.
Oh my God, thank you. Wow.
I was hoping you would find that as a compliment.
I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
It does remind me of Feyre calling Tamlin a warrior in A Court of Thorns and Roses.
Yes, I see what you're saying. The only difference is that Aelin has a history of fighting, as much as like I'm shitting on it not being enough. And Feyre was just like, I've only spent time with my two sisters and a boy I have sex and hay with.
I just don't believe
I agree.
that she can look at Rowan and be like, he's a law unto himself.
No, I agree. It's a lot of, this is where it's good that this is third person, because if this was first person, I think we'd be shitting on it a lot more. And this is where third person is needed, because SJM wants the reader to have a very distinct thought and feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of aggressive spoon feeding in these early chapters, especially with Rowan. And it's a
Yeah.
lot of, he's powerful.
Yeah. Yep.
He's a leopard tattooed dick beast. Be afraid.
Take a sip.
Take a sip. I need that. We're now in chapter 3, and we're in Cale's point of view, and he's having a nightmare where he sees Celaena killing Archer, and then Archer turns into Dorian. Cale does not trust Celaena, but is still determined to protect her, at least like in his own mind, by not revealing her truth, because Cale still loves her. Quote, Cale still couldn't move, couldn't go to his friend or the woman he loved. I think this is like, I got really caught up in here because it's, third person past tense. So you can't say loves because that's present tense.
Right.
And I think that if it was past tense, it would have changed to the woman he had once loved.
Or, yeah. Or had loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's important because for both Celaena and with Cale, there's still a lot of love there. There's still a
Mm-hmm.
lot of feelings. What I find to be the most interesting is the end of this dream. Quote, the dream shifted again, and Cale was pinned beneath her as she writhed above him, her head still thrown back, that same expression of ecstasy written across her blood-spattered face. Enemy, lover, queen. He just had a sex dream about her. That's what that was.
Yeah.
He was writhing, head back. And right now, sex equals violence. Cale is
Mm-hmm.
trying to process that. I think he's also trying to process the fact that he had sex with someone who's far more powerful and deadly than him and is a royal. We know how
Mm-hmm.
he feels about feeling like he's not superior or good enough to be, with Dorian in the friend sense. So there's a lot of complexity here, but Cale has always had a bit of trouble when it comes to powerful women.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's like, do I like it? Am I afraid of powerful women or am I into it? I can't tell.
Yeah, there's definitely this sense of both reverence and powerlessness because throughout the dream, Cale is not able to move,
Mm-hmm.
even when Dream Celaena kills Archer slash Dorian.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it feels like Cale is thinking or experiencing a situation where Celaena has taken his quote unquote innocence
Yeah.
with as much satisfaction as ecstasy as when she kills her prey.
Yep.
I say he's innocent because he's not necessarily actively participating in the sex dream, right? He's pinned under her. It's all Celaena doing the sex act, intercoursing. Cale's subconscious in this sequence is telling us that he feels like he's been ensnared, he's been fooled, and he's been powerless to stop Celaena, stop her plans, and however she's going to use him.
Mm.
The irony of it is it's such an extreme juxtaposition of the Celaena we just saw. And also, from what we know as the reader from the last two books, it's so far from the thoughts we know Celaena to have had.
Yeah. Baby boy Cale, though, hasn't learned shit and continues to keep secrets. Quote, but Dorian couldn't know who and what Celaena was or what the king was truly planning. The potential for disaster was too high. I don't know. I can't help him. However, why is this important? We have to ask ourselves this because this is the baseline of the character at the start of this book. And we have to understand that I think it means something that he hasn't learned from the last book. He hasn't walked away from that big change of saying maybe, wow, that was really horrible, which, that kind of shows you that something even worse has to happen now.
Mm-hmm.
What are the repercussions? Has anything changed? But yeah.
What has changed is the relationship between Cale and Dorian. Their dynamics are so different from the first two books. Now, at this moment, Cale is staring off into space, remembering his sex dream, and Dorian's like, "What are you thinking about?" And he asks, basically, was it about Celaena? Quote, Cale gave an apologetic wince. Paragraph break. The crown prince didn't return Cale's half smile. There is distance between the two, both in title. Dorian is more than just Dorian, but Cale is just Cale,
Mm-hmm.
as well as in the paragraph break.
Yeah.
Like their actions don't even occur within the same line.
I love that. I love it.
And I bring it up because the paragraph break isn't necessary.
But it's just
And
good use of writing.
yeah, it's a good use of the actual technical side of writing to convey meaning.
Yeah. I think part of the reason why people have issues with Cale is because he says things like this, and at this point he's thinking about Celaena. Quote, he didn't doubt for one heartbeat that she could snap again. There was such a glittering darkness in her, an endless rift straight through her core. And I think people would read that and they would get immediately defensive of Celaena, being like, excuse me, like, how dare you go in on her like that? But is he wrong? He's always had a very brutal but accurate description of Celaena when in the first book, he was like, I can't trust her. And I know people were like, no, it's fine. But like, there was reasons why he shouldn't trust her. And I think we as readers need to continue to be honest about who Celaena is at this time. And she, in fact, did attack him. She, in fact, did go after Dorian. She, in fact, is currently in Wendlyn in a drunken stupor. Like, is he that off?
Well, and let's not forget, Celaena just said she has an empty abyss inside her. How is that any different from the endless rift straight through her core?
Yep.
Those are the same things.
Good job.
There's also something about the fact that in Cale's description of that rift inside Celaena, he calls it a glittering darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he can't admit it, it's almost as if Cale finds like something beautiful and entrancing about that darkness. It's glittering.
Yeah.
It's so, to me, it's like a seductive kind of darkness. There's something, glittering is such a word choice, right? It has such a connotation.
I mean, like, the fact that it's glittering in its darkness, those are the two opposite things. When I think
Right.
glittering, I think like Taylor Swift
I think wearing a sexy sequin dress.
with your leopard. I'm never
No,
getting that one done.
I know. Oh, damn it. Sorry, guys. The season's shot already. Well, let's take a sip.
At this point, we meet Adian, and we've heard about him in the second book. It's been teased out, and we are seeing him very Celaena coded. Quote, it was the way Adian prowled towards the king's table, his shoulder-length golden hair gleaming in the torchlight as he smirked at them all. Again, very Celaena coded, but why is this important? Because if Adian is just like Celaena, then what do we know about Celaena? She's always putting up a front. It's not what you think, what's going on underneath. There's ulterior motives, and that what you're seeing is just an image she's putting on.
It's a great point. And there are going to be other clues that kind of allude to this as well. This same quote makes me think of Cale as an unreliable and dishonest narrator just to the same extent as Celaena. Because the sentence starts out with, quote, it wasn't that the young general was a threat. Rather, it was the way Adian prowled. I'm like, he's a threat. He's a predator.
That's a threat.
That's a threat.
I've never seen a bunny prowl.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah.
He's also a leopard.
Does he have a tattooed dick?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Another example to highlight Jack's argument, quote, it was good that Celaena wasn't here to see what Adian had become, not just because of the ring, to turn on your own people. Adian slid onto the bench across from them, grinning, a predator assessing prey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you can think of Adian and Celaena so closely together, they have the same eyes, they have the same hair color. Do you not think, knowing that they were also brought up together, that they would have similar views on the world, on their responsibilities?
I think it's weird that they're described as being so similar, grew up together, identical to each other.
We're
And they were
supposed to
supposed to
marry
get
each
married.
other.
It's just so, we don't talk about that enough. We don't
Yeah.
talk about that enough. The interaction between Kale, Dorian, and Adian says a lot of what's going on here. And they're all talking, and Adian just wants to get laid, which is funny because it's like, I've seen this film before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with Rowan. That was the cousin's name, where
Mm-hmm.
it's just this playboy from the outside going, "Hey, Dorian, do you want to get laid?" And then Dorian goes, "No, thank you." And then Adian says, "More for me." And the very next thought is this quote: Kale clenched his fists under the table. Celaena had not exactly been virtuous in the past 10 years, but she'd never killed a natural born citizen of Terrasen. I think that's a really weird thing to think about after Adian talks about having sex. It
Mm-hmm.
does not go smoothly. However, what did we talk about? We talked about sex and violence being linked between the two. And I think it's the fact that Kale sees similarity with Adian, and Adian is out having a lot of sex, and he sees Celaena in her, and then it's like, she was virtuous. She didn't do anything. Ugh.
Except take my innocence.
Ugh. Took his innocence. Adian is saying so much with the things that he's not saying also, which is very Celaena, and we should be reading between the lines here. Quote, Adian chuckled, finishing off the lamb. I am his majesty's faithful servant, as I have always been. Those Ash River eyes once more settled on Dorian. Perhaps I'll be your whore someday too. First, I like the idea that he's eating lamb because it reminds me of like lamb to a slaughter or sacrificial
Mm-hmm.
lamb. And it's kind of the way that Adian is, a sacrificial lamb. And the fact that he views himself as a whore, like he's going on the offensive, but it's all because he's very defensive.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so much self-loathing when one describes themselves as a whore,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially in this case.
Oh, yeah.
Not long before this particular moment, Adian had also said to Dorian, quote, symbols have power, Prince, Adian said, pinning him with a stare, Celaena's stare, unyielding and alive with challenge. This is significant and it's going to continue to be significant in Adian's case. In this moment, it's about the fact that Adian himself is a symbol of the King of Otterland's power, that he owns this Prince of Terrasen. There are going to be other things associated with Adian that are symbols of power that we'll discuss in the future. After this interaction with Adian, Kale decides he, quote, didn't want the general anywhere near Celaena, anywhere near Terrasen either. And I'm sorry, but who is he to decide? He did not marry Aelin. He's not king of Terrasen. Who does he get to be to decide that Adian should stay away?
Yep.
Kale hasn't come to terms with the fact that he doesn't get a say in Celaena's life anymore.
No. And that feels good. I love a groveling man. We're now entering chapter 4. And ladies and gentlemen, let me rephrase that. Ladies and Patrick. And that one other male listener we have. The one, the only, the queen, Manon.
Phenomena.
Do, do, do.
The first sentence of this chapter, I love because I think SJM intends for us to be fooled by it because you could interpret it as Manon being weak. Quote, Manon pulled her blood-red cloak tightly around herself and pressed into the shadows of the closet, listening to the 3 men who had broken into her cottage. It's very benign. Manon could be a damsel in distress. We don't
No.
know. She's the wolf in sheep's clothing. SJM turns it around in the next paragraph.
Quote, she tasted the rising fear and rage on the wind all day and had spent the afternoon preparing. She'd been sitting on the thatched roof. This is so interesting to me because I never realized how much SJM has Manon and Celaena mirroring one another right from the get-go. How did we see Celaena at the beginning of this book? Sitting on the roof. The main difference, Celaena's lost her shit, Manon's on her shit. And everything about them is mirroring. I mean, the way that Manon prepares for this attack is the way that Celaena would have. pre-drunken depression. While Manon is stalking the men, she is, quote, keeping still as a deer. Now, this is another comparison to Celaena. Now, I know that Celaena is often associated with stags, but go with me on this.
I think it's a great point because I never thought about how visually they are being set up to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
We know by the end of this scene that Manon is in fact a predator, so it's strange to connect her to a deer because deer are often the prey.
Yeah.
But it's purely, I think you're right, because of the connection to Celaena.
Yeah. I mean, we also have the fact that this is our only other blonde. I mean, she has white hair, but,
Mhm.
like they both have the light fair hair. There's a
Mhm.
lot of comparison between the two.
Yep.
I am going to be thriving, though, analyzing Manon because she is everything that men fear. Quote, men so long to work up the nerve to come here, to torment and then destroy what petrified them. Ooh, oof. I love it. Like, men are afraid, they're going to destroy the things they're afraid of, but not on Manon's watch because she's
Mhm.
very smart and forward thinking. She even oils door hinges. She has a bug out bag. Like, she has everything that she possibly needs. And again, it's just something that Celaena, when not depressed and drunk, would have done.
It's a great point. And I've thought often about why is Manon in Heir of Fire? Because quite frankly, she's the only interesting thing in Heir of Fire. But why have something so interesting in a book that isn't that interesting?
Tell us how you really feel.
Should she have been saved for Queen of Shadows? Because even though we love her, her storyline is not as important to Heir of Fire as a plot.
Does the whole thing with Braxis, is that Queen of Shadow?
No, it's in this book, but that's the only thing.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty
Is
important thing.
no, I mean it's important, but as readers, we don't understand the connection
Yeah. Yeah.
to Aelin, Dorian, and Kale.
I mean, this is the true, we are starting a completely new plot line that has nothing to do with any of the players.
Exactly. So it could come across as confusing for new readers.
Yeah.
But to your point, because of the visual connections to Celaena, and because Celaena is at a low point, she's depressed, she's going to really struggle in this book. I think as readers, we need a substitute kick ass woman.
We need a counterbalance.
We do. And Manon is that balance while Celaena is going through her metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Let's talk about Manon's witch's appearance, where she goes full witch. And I don't quite understand. Like, are they born with iron teeth or do they get it inserted?
I think they get it inserted. I think that's explained in a later book.
Okay, I hate that. I hate that so much. Okay. Quote, Manon smiled broader, and a row of dagger sharp iron teeth pushed from the slits high in her gums, snapping down like armor. And we also have this quote, the iron claws shot over her nails in a stinging, gleaming flash. What I love about this is that you have two very quote unquote feminine things. What are the things that every woman has been told at least once? You should smile. You should smile more. Why aren't you smiling? And then you also have her nails, rather their actual claws, very animalistic. So you have these two things that you would put under the female category or maybe animal category, and she's using it as a weapon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I like even more is how much joy Manon gets out of all of this. Quote, and then just to really make him soil his pants, she flicked her wrists in the air between them. She is the perfect predator. She not only enjoys this, she's good at it.
Mhm.
Quote, the second man also didn't get the chance to scream before she gutted him with two swipes of her iron nails. They don't hear her coming. They can't warn each other of her deadly presence. They can't scream. I mean, lions, tigers, and leopards and other predators wish they were as good as Manon.
Manon does not need a tattoo to her vagina to be scary, you know? Like,
That's right.
she doesn't need a
She,
pathway.
no, she doesn't need shit.
No,
She is the shit.
she is the shit. Manon is everything the patriarchy fears. I mean, she goes in and, like, bites them, like, straight up bites the neck and everything. She's
Rips out their
terrifying.
throat.
Yeah, it's amazing. Quote, "The common watery taste of the man, laced with violence and fear, coated her tongue, and she spat on the wooden floorboards." She is calling their blood common and watery, saying that the blood is thin, that it's weak, that it's just, like, absolutely pathetic. I just love this idea of calling men's blood watery.
Mhm. Again, Manon has joy from all of this. There's a playfulness about it. Quote, "She counted to 10 because she wanted to hunt and had been that way since she tore through her mother's womb and came roaring and bloody into this world." First of all, this is what it means to toy with your dinner. Toy with someone, play with your dinner. Let's count to 10 because I want to hunt. I want to have fun, even though you're scared shitless. Also, I love this description of Manon's birth. The visual description of it makes it sound like she came out a born warrior with intentional
That's
violence.
why I thought she was born with nails.
No,
You can see my confusion.
I understand your confusion. Yes,
Thank you. Hope someone else was confused with me.
that's fair. Now I'm like, I need to triple check, but I'm pretty sure they talk about it being a process
Okay.
to have them inserted. But regardless of whether or not she had nails, her description of being a vulnerable infant at childbirth is she tore through her mother's womb and came out roaring and bloody. Like it was, I caused the violence intentionally, not
Mhm.
I'm a baby and I can't do anything about this.
No, she came out being like, "On my time, bitch.
Yeah,
On
that's
my
right.
fucking time."
There is so much power to Manon and everything she does.
What adds depth, though, to Manon, and what I love about her is the fact that she rejects the quote unquote feminine and also not even quote unquote, but like women, quote unquote soft women, quote quote. They were still out there, the self righteous, insufferable Crocans hiding as healers and wise women. You kind of have these ideas sometimes with healers being oftentimes associated with women and then these like wise women, and she's just straight up disgusted with them. Just you weak. Like, not only does she hate men, she hates women too.
Equal opportunity.
I get it. Yeah.
The chapter ends with a visual that goes back to Jack's comment about smiling. Quote, "She found the farmer lost in the middle of the field, softly bleating with fear. And when he turned, his bladder loosened at the sight of the blood and the iron teeth and the wicked, wicked smile. Manon let him scream all he wanted." It's very anti-feminine,
Yeah.
the wicked, wicked smile.
Yep.
And the farmer is bleating like a goat,
Meh.
bleating with fear.
Meh.
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 And he is the sacrificial lamb to our goddess, killer queen Manon.
I bow down. I love meeting characters that I know are too good for us.
Yeah.
Like they would never like us.
Yeah. I want to be her so
I
bad.
think give us one drunken night and we could get her laugh one time. I'm not saying we'd be friends with her, but I would walk away being like, I think between the two of us, we could get her to laugh once.
And she would resent us for the rest of her life.
Yeah, maybe want to kill us for that too. Let's go into chapter 5. And Celaena and Rowan are traveling, and she just doesn't talk to him, and he doesn't talk to her.
There's a lot of not talking. There is also a very symbolic moment during one of their nights of not talking that I want to take a moment to point out because I think it's symbolically significant. After drinking from the stream and then taking care of her biological urges or needs, she, quote, "staggered back to camp, finding it by the gleam of Rowan's silver hair." Now they can't have fire because there are creatures out in the woods, so she's literally traveling by moonlight, reflecting off of Rowan's hair. Now, it's not like a romantic description. However, I think it is symbolic of the fact that Rowan will eventually become her guiding light. He's serving that purpose already physically in these early chapters.
Yeah, I like it. Now, at one point, Rowan gives her an apple, and I'm sure Amy could go into the fact that he's giving her substance. You can go into the fact that he's giving her an apple, which could be considered a fall from grace, very Adam and Eve, serpent.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that you can interpret that. However, I want to look at this quote. Quote, she realized just how loudly she'd been munching on the apple. And if anyone who knows me knows that's straight up unforgivable. Like, I told a potential new guy, like, you just can't eat an apple in front of me. That's not acceptable. And this is the first time that I might be okay with Rowan punching her. It's just not okay if you are openly munching on an apple like that, you don't care about other people and you are a bad human.
There's a condition, I forget what the name is,
Yeah, I have it.
that you have. Not everyone acts this way with apples and eating.
It's just I am very sensitive to certain noises.
You know what? I think it's actually a lot more people than we
Yeah.
realize.
Yeah.
Um,
It's more obvious the more stressed I am. It comes
yeah,
out more.
yeah. Celaena notices there are small fairies that we haven't actually really seen since early Throne of Glass. Quote, the fairies kept their unblinking vigil. Wishing she hadn't downed the food so quickly, Celaena watched them back, ready to spring to a defense position. Rowan hadn't moved. Now, Rowan obviously doesn't see these little fairies as a threat. Celaena mentally does. She doesn't know if they're associated with the fairies back in Terrasen. And if you think about it, they've been leaving her gifts all her life, so she's avoided them intentionally to disguise her identity. Maybe Celaena has forgotten that she doesn't have to be on guard around them anymore, but she does seem to view them with some trepidation.
Yeah.
And we have to understand why. We then move to chapter 6, and Dorian is visiting the King of Otterlyn in his breakfast room, and there are a ton of power dynamics going on. Quote, Dorian Haviljard stood before his father's breakfast table, his hands held behind his back. The king had arrived moments ago, but hadn't told him to sit. Reminded instantly of where things stand between Dorian and the king, and this is a very, very intense juxtaposition of how they will visually appear at the end of the novel, though the power dynamics sadly stay the same. Even though the king is sitting and Dorian is standing over him, it is ultimately the king who is in control. He's the one eating while Dorian stands there kind of like a soldier. Dorian knows that he may have griped about this in the past, but, quote, having magic, the best he could do these days was maintain a low profile to keep his father or anyone else from looking too long in his direction. So Dorian stood before the table and waited. Dorian's essentially been diminished to an obedient dog,
Yeah.
kind of waiting for scraps or instructions, just like, okay, I'm here. Do I get something from you now?
Love.
No, no love, none at all. When the King of Otterlyn finally deigns to speak to Dorian, the use of titles reinforces their dynamics. Quote, you're quiet this morning, Prince. The conqueror of Aurelia reached for a platter of smoked fish. Now, this is from Dorian's point of view, and he thinks of his father as the conqueror of Aurelia. Like, what is a prince compared to a conqueror? Nothing.
Very true. Very, very true. Since we're in Dorian's point of view for the first time, we now get to have a sense of where he is in his growth. Quote, Cale has shut him out so completely that Dorian didn't feel like attempting to explain himself to his friend. What I find it to be interesting is that Dorian has matured in many ways, but when it comes to Cale, he does not mature. I think he understands why Cale had to cut him out. Like, on a certain level, he even thinks about how there's plenty of people who would turn him in. And he knows Cale wouldn't do that. And Cale says, hey, I need to make sure I protect you any way I can. But Dorian has been doing these microaggressions towards Cale since book 1. And this is just bubbling over at this point.
Yep. Now, the irony of Dorian's situation in general in this book is like what we discussed last season. The fact that he is so powerful, he is weak. Instead of being able to exhibit that power that he has, the magic, it actually ends up putting him on the defensive and making him try to appear smaller and insignificant in all situations, including with the king. When Dorian questions the king's use of Aedion, because, at the end of the day, he knows Aedion probably isn't loyal to their crown, the king rewards Dorian by saying, "You got to go spend time with Aedion now." And Dorian thinks, quote, "And just like that, his father fed him to the wolf." Because at the end of the day, if anyone were to find out about Dorian's magic and rat him out, Dorian probably believes it's going to be Aedion,
Mm-hmm.
because Aedion has nothing to lose. Aedion probably hates Dorian's guts.
Yep.
So why not? Before Jack talks about Aedion and Dorian's interaction, I want to call out a specific moment going back to this idea of symbols of power. Quote, "The wolf had let out a low chuckle and shrugged, the scarred hilt of the sword of Orinth catching the near blinding sunlight." We know at this point, or we learn soon, that the sword of Orinth technically belongs to Aelin as the rightful heir. Aedion asked for it as a quote-unquote gift from the king of Adarlan after he slaughtered a bunch of people. We learn from Aedion's point of view in the future that's because he wanted to earn it back to give to Aelin when he sees her again.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that the hilt of the sword is scarred...
Do we learn that in this book or in a future book?
In this book.
Okay.
The fact that the hilt of the sword is scarred is so significant when you remember that Aedion said to Dorian, "Symbols have power."
Mm-hmm.
The sword of Orinth is literally the symbol of the kingdom of Terrason's power, and it's been so damaged that it's scarred, just like Terrason, Aedion, and Aelin have been scarred.
Yep. Aedion and Dorian go for a walk because Daddy told him so. And Aedion is kind of sheep herding him away farther and farther from the guards just so that they can have this moment. Quote, "Just enough time for Aedion to subtly trip Dorian into one of the thorny walls, still humming his lewd songs." A couple things. One, Dorian doesn't even say, like, "What the fuck, bro? What the hell?" Like, there is not even an inch of reaction from Dorian. How often does this happen? Like, I
Mm-hmm.
just, again, very strange to me. Two, it also shows that Aedion hates Dorian, which is these microaggressions are, I mean, this is more aggression. It's against the king and Dorian. So maybe we should be guessing that Aedion is against the king himself.
It's a great point. There is something so very immature about this that
Yeah.
we might not take it seriously because it feels like Aedion's just a middle school bully. What I think we fail to grasp, and that I appreciated, I was thinking about this in my notes, is that this is probably the extent of what Aedion can actually do to Dorian.
Yeah.
And that's the irony. Like, Dorian views Aedion as a wolf, but all Aedion can do to Dorian is trip him. And for Dorian to not stoop to Aedion's level of immaturity or raise a fuss about it is telling, because if he did so, he would appear weak, right? "Oh, Aedion tripped me." Like, who gives a shit?
But he also can't do anything because if he were to say something, I mean, against Aedion, it would appear weak because Aedion's
Exactly.
stronger than him. No matter, but Dorian has an issue of just looking weak all around.
Yep. He loses.
Yeah, because what hasn't changed through all of this is Dorian's pride. At this point, Dorian goes to see the healer, Sorsha, and, quote, "Dorian held up his bloodied hand. Thorn bush." That's what he says to Sorsha, because rose bushes made his cut seem that much more pathetic. Dorian is still concerned about how he's viewed and not being considered manly. And I think that's part of the reason why he's going to be attracted to Sorsha, because to her, he is manly. Manly's so overrated.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as someone who hasn't not been with manly men. Not that the men I'm going to stop talking.
Okay.
They're manly. Not all. When Sorsha implies that she has kept all of the secrets that she has seen, Dorian has this existential crisis where he realizes other people exist. Quote, "How many others," he wondered, "had seen more than they let on? He didn't want to know." Shocking. Shocking that other people in this world exist and that they observe him. You guys, Dorian's having a breakthrough here, and we just gotta praise him that he's like, wow, other people, servants are people too. Better calm down here.
I'm laughing because he has come a long way from book 1.
But yet, but then you have moments like this where it's like, or not that far.
Yeah. But I do think he is growing some self-awareness, which is important because he does develop the relationship with Sorsha. And book 1 Dorian would not be capable of that.
No, I mean, it took him up to book 3 to realize that other people exist and that servants are humans too. You're right. It's like huge growth.
Quote, there was no anger in it, Sorsha's tone, as there should have been. The spoiled prince and his entitled friends, too absorbed in their own lives to bother learning the name of the healer who had patched them up again and again. See, that's self-awareness. That's Dorian thinking to himself, wow, I'm dumb.
No, yes, and no. Because he's threw his friends in there. I promise you Celaena knows her name.
I doubt that.
Oh, no, I'm sure Celaena, like, she's an assassin.
Okay. It doesn't matter because she dies.
Wait, in this book or... Is it in this book?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't realize you hadn't reread it.
No.
Well, sorry for the
surprise.
spoiler.
No, it's going to be a great surprise for me.
What the other thing I want to point out is the fact that it took separation from Kill and Celaena, both of whom Dorian feels like he's been rejected by, for Dorian to even become aware of Sorsha. And that's important because Dorian, as we said, or as Jack said in last season, Dorian didn't really develop feelings for Celaena until Celaena rejected him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he really started to care for her. The same can be said here. Dorian isn't capable of developing feelings for Sorsha until the only people he thinks he cares about have rejected him.
Yep. We then get Sorsha's point of view, and it tells us, the reader, that, hey, this character's going to matter. And, SJM loves throwing in a character to kill them. It's Nehemia, now Sorsha. And then we find out, of course, that she loves him, which should have been, we should have known that was the kiss of death here. Quote, but that didn't stop her from loving him, as she still did, invisible and secret ever since she first laid eyes on him 6 years ago.
Girl, I get it. That's high school me. Let's take a sip.
We're now in chapter 7, and we're back with Celaena and Rowan, and they're still traveling. Quote, so she kept her mouth shut the entire day as they rode through the woods up into the Cambrian mountains. Again, I would like to build my case. I just would like to note that my client has not said a single word throughout these travel days, not inciting shit. I'll come back to my case, Judge, later.
Who's your client, Celaena or Rowan?
Celaena's my client. My client hasn't said anything,
And neither has Rowan.
No, neither has Rowan, but people have been arguing that Celaena was a pain in his ass from the get-go, and we've been at the get-go for 3 days.
Fair. Let's focus on Celaena's mindset at this moment. Right before the quote that Jack read, quote, Celaena debated asking Rowan what the words in his tattoo meant, but that would involve talking, and talking meant building some sort of relationship. She'd had enough of friends, enough of them dying too. Celaena's going to be pretty vile at points in this book. And again, we have to establish where she's at mentally. Pushing people away is a defense mechanism because she's tired of hurting. It doesn't exclude the times that she's rude and mean, flat out mean to people, but it explains why she's here.
And I want to emphasize that she's doing neither right now. She's not technically pushing him away. She's just not welcoming him.
She's not engaging.
Yeah.
During their travels, they start to enter a lot of mist. Quote, the forest turned lusher and dense, and the higher they rode, the mistier it became. Great veils of fog drifting past to caress her face, her neck, her spine. Another cold, miserable night camped off the road later, and they were writing again before dawn. By then, the mist had seeped into her clothes and skin and settled right along her bones. The mist is very intimate in this scene, and it could just be atmospheric, but something about it feels symbolic. I don't know if it's Celaena's misery, her guilt, her depression, or her isolation, but there's something about it to me that I was like, this means something, and I can't pin it right
We'll
now.
have to see if there's more missed imagery.
Yeah.
When they get closer to the fortress, Celaena has a very visceral reaction to it. Quote, wards, magic wards, her stomach turned. If they didn't keep out enemies, they certainly served as an alarm, which meant the 3 figures patrolling each of the 3 towers, the 6 on the outer retaining walls, and the 3 at the wooden gates would now know they were approaching. Men and women in tight leather armor and bearing swords, daggers, and bows monitored their approach. I'd rather stay in the woods. That's Celaena. I think this is a little moment of a trauma response to Endovier.
That's a great point. Didn't even think about that.
Thank you.
There's a different passing thought that Celaena has I wanted to point out. Celaena thinks, quote, Rowan might not have spoken to her for most of their journey. He'd shown as much interest in her as he would in a pile of shit on the road. Just want to point out that because whether or not she likes Rowan, if she thinks Rowan thinks she's no more interesting than a pile of shit on the road, again, it reflects her own internalized self-loathing.
And then finally, we get a description of Maeve's throne room. Quote, it wasn't the carved oak furniture or the faded green drapes or the warmth of the fire that made her stop dead. I like the description of it because there is the, warm fire, oak furniture, but it's the faded green drapes that kind of catches my eye because it implies that it's worn and that it might have lost something. It might have lost values and morals.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And we have to remember green is the color of Terrazin.
Yep.
And faded, for it to be faded green, to what extent is it a shadow of what Terrazin is?
Yep. All right. So that was the first episode.
First episode.
It's weird
Pew,
because
pew,
we're about to still
pew.
keep recording.
Yeah, we are.
But this is where the episode for Tuesday ends. And why is that? Because we're doing something different this season. Breadcrumbs and broomsticks, because they're spoilery in nature, are going into a separate episode on Thursdays, while the main analysis content will remain in our Tuesday episode. This is also where we're going to be discussing listener thoughts and interpretations, and we are going to collect your emails, DMs, and every week we put up a prompt that we ask you to answer, and that's a prompt that we will then discuss in Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks.
To wrap up this episode, we're going to answer the question for the week, which is, do we believe the opening of Heir of Fire is adequately set up by the preceding events in Crown of Midnight, as well as the status of everyone and every relationship?
Everyone but Celaena.
Yes, that's an easy answer. I agree with you. That's the succinct answer.
It's just, we hinted at it, we talked about it. SJM needed to get to a place very quickly. She had a vision of where Celaena was going to be, and there was too much work that had to happen. This is already a much bigger book than Throne of Glass and Crown of Midnight. It's 500 pages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And roughly. And she needed to get straight into it. And she needed Celaena to grow in a very specific way. I could be on board with it, but the setup to get here, it was too rushed. It was hard for it to be like, all right, in the first chapter, we're going to have her go from gung-ho to depressed to, okay, I guess I'm willing to do something, just so that we can have this spiraling, depressed Celaena this whole book. And clearly SJM had a vision and it could link. She just didn't spend the time to make it link.
Yeah, I think because she wants the inciting incident essentially to be Celaena meeting Rowan so that Rowan can take her to Maeve, correct? Yep. And for Rowan to be disdainful of Celaena, for him to justify the way he treats her, she has to be this bumbling mess, right? She has to be drunk. She has to given up on her mission.
Mm-hmm.
because for him to come and meet her while she's trying to figure out her mission to kill her family doesn't really work.
No.
And I wonder to what extent the original version of Heir of Fire, did it start with Celaena meeting Maeve? Like, did it even really start in Wendlyn?
Yeah.
And was the Wendlyn start, the first chapter, really kind of something that had to be brought in because there was too much of a jump between Crown of Midnight and Heir of Fire?
Yeah, it feels like there was a lot of self-service to make the dynamic between Celaena and Rowan work. That was the primary goal, is this is their dynamic. I need it to be a certain thing.
Yeah.
And the Celaena that we had at the end of Crown of Midnight was not the Celaena at all.
Yeah.
And SJM's manipulating the story to meet the needs that she has.
Yeah.
And I think it's obvious. I think it's, not that it's not justifiable, not that I'm saying that Celaena wouldn't be depressed. Like, yes, all the things that make sense, but it's too rushed.
Yeah. I agree.
I wonder what a 1-page prequel or prologue would have done.
Interesting.
Just so that we visually have it separated a little bit more.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Thank you. All right. Now let's sign off so that you guys can get ready for Thursday's episode, which we're about to still keep recording.
Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us Thursday for our breadcrumbs and broomsticks discussion from today's chapters.
If you're enjoying the show, please don't forget to rate and review and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers and listeners find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle BookTalk4BookTalk. And don't forget, join us as we keep the analysis going by subscribing to our Substack to get more insights on the romantasy and romance world. Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com. Bye.